adaptable. Reason being that I think you saw a club, a group, individuals that had to adapt to several situations throughout the season in general. I think they had to adapt to coaches, style of play, situations, injuries, a lot of moving situations, and I think that's what defined them in the end. I think an easier word would have been resilient, but I think we've spoken enough about that word. So I think adaptable, just looking at athletes being able to really readjust themselves to a lot of stuff that happened on both individual as collective parts. I think that's just very strong. So I think that would be a right word for them um, to use. And then looking at next season, obviously, how can we transfer that adaptability into more of a strength than it was a weakness this season?
I'm kind of stealing Sean's question here a little bit as well, but since it is election day, what's kind of your vision, your platform for 2025 for this team?
Platform as in,
Kind of what's your your mission statement?
um, I think I just finished all the exit interviews with all the players, and I gave them one warning, and that's bring your running shoes for preseason. So I think now the platform will be a team that has the basics from the beginning on. All the basics will be done in preseason, from a conditional point of view, from a footballing point of view, and we will be a team that grows throughout the season more than having to adjust, having to still learn a lot of stuff during the season. Like we want to be ready when the season starts. I think we said the same going into BFC. Like as much as that Summer Cup was to value of us, it was more getting ready for Bay. I think preseason is going to be the same, making sure we're ready for that first game, making sure that we're a team that grows within the season based upon performances more than on things that we still have to learn. So I think the platform it's also something that we will make very visible in these facilities. Like once you're past that door, we will strive for excellence and we will make sure that everything is ready from a staffing perspective, just for the players to be ready to perform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So at the end of the Utah Jazz season last year, when or it was even before the start of this year, Danny and Ryan and Justin were sitting and listening or fielding questions from the media, and somebody asked what their emphasis was going to be in the off season, and I think it was Justin said he was going big game hunting. It's kind of out of context, but do you feel like you have most of the pieces, or is there going to be some big game hunting for a new piece, a new player, somebody that adds a huge dimensional piece to your roster?
Um, Obviously, when you look at an expansion year, you look at an expansion team, you don't always get to do what you want to do as a group, as a team, as a club in general. Um, so I think that second year is making sure that you have all the pieces right. So I do think we can expect some changes in terms of rostering people, in how we fill the building. Just because, like I said, first year is sometimes you get what you can get, looking at every single part of how a roster construction works. And I think the second year is making adjustments, making decision based upon what you had in your first season. You get to see other sides of people, you get to see qualities of people, you get to see players. So that's when you can make more objective conclusions. And I think we will see quite some changes in the off season. We're still looking for 3 to 4 good pieces to make sure we have the puzzle right. Um, what we definitely don't want to do is end up in the situations that we were at the end of the season. Very a group that was not really healthy anymore. We were not really fresh, not fit anymore. We had to do some changes in August, like all of those situations. Like if we want to be stable, we want to be competing for the playoffs. We need our team to be ready in March for a good 80-90%, and then look at August what we have to do more, and if we have to do something more to reach that top 10, to reach that 10 more percent towards the 100. But no, I think in general it's very common when a team builds something that after your first year you get to see your mistakes, you get to see your learnings, your success, and that's what you base your second year upon.
And with the new CBA, or what's being written still, when are you and Kelly allowed to start discussing or reaching out to potential players, and when can those invitations be made for a discussion?
Um, I think it also depends a bit on the market you're going out for. Obviously, I think there is a fixed way of working. It's a free agent list. Everyone was able to have a look at it, talk to a few players. I think there are some fixed rules when it comes to when the windows are open, but I think it mostly depends on the market you're looking for. I think the markets that we're looking into at the minute, we're capable of reaching out to clubs because obviously if you look into European clubs, you have to find an agreement with the clubs because obviously they're in middle of the season, so it's not an easy process to do so. So I think that's mostly the way of working at the minute. But I think, and I would dare to say that a lot of our homework was done in the last few weeks. It also helped announcing my stay, making sure that we have a style of play, that we know what type of players that we're looking for, that we're able to really make a good analysis of, look, if we want to be in the top 8, if we want to do more of this, that's what we need. And then obviously we have, I think we have someone very good that is working with data, and she was able to provide us with a good overview. Like, look, if this is what you want to do, these might be the, let's say, 30 players that might help you with it. And then again, it's back to the club and look, we have someone that is aged 23, 27, 28. Like, what is the philosophy of the club? What is something ownership wants? What is our way of working? And I think that's been a process the last few weeks. Ownership is coming in end of this week. So I think that's a clear message that our work towards next season starts now. I think it's literally the first day after the players leave that they're coming in just to make sure that we do the right stuff towards next season. Though that's a good commitment from them as well. So I think everyone is ready to make next season a very successful season.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
The league took a pretty dramatic step, and I say dramatic from the vantage of like an American sports league, of disbanding the draft, doing away with the draft, and for college players and some re-entry players and that type of thing. But have they given you guys any sort of direction when it comes to sort of how to fill in some of those gaps where I mean, you came from Europe, so obviously the draft doesn't exist there, so it's probably a little bit easier transition for you. But have they told you kind of about certain mechanisms for bringing in new players or anything like that?
I think from a club organizational point of view, the draft is something that was very attractive. I think being a club, it helped a lot of clubs to improve themselves, the draft, due to the system. From an individual player perspective, it was harder to understand that. I'm not saying you had nothing to say, but in the end, it was not always your choice to go somewhere, but you had to. So in a way, it does make sense that we're moving towards this direction. I do think, looking at college, looking at the level, I think we need to have good understanding and good collaboration with college, because the only thing that changed is that, and we already saw it a few weeks ago, a lot of clubs said, like, look, we're not going to reach out to college players yet. We're not going to do that. And I think some clubs signed already and also announced it, like, very big, like we signed someone. So I think that's just something that we'll have to settle in the upcoming years more. That's not something that will happen straight away. But I think it's actually also a positive thing to me. Why is that? Like, I think you'll have less of players that you bring in where you're not 100% sure of. Like, if you go out on the market right now, if you go to college, you'll have to be 100% sure of what you bring in, because you'll have to spend quite some assets, quite some time in looking at players right now and making sure you have the right fit, whilst looking at the draft, looking at everything went like it was a sort of a logical order of players, like it was a logical model, where right now we're spending a lot of time in making sure that we find the right fit for a style of play and the person and the player that we want to bring in the building. So I think that's also a good thing for college players coming off to college. Like, they'll be chosen by a club, but it will be 100% the choice of the club to bring a player in, which is also part of confidence for a player. Like, look, we want you 100% to be in our environment, and you want to be in our environment for 100%. And if you have that connection, I think you can really build something very sustainable and healthy, more than what we were capable of doing right now.
I guess kind of building off of that a little bit, and you touched on this somewhat, but have you already started putting together sort of your list of, maybe even not, I'm not going to ask for like specific players or anything like that, but areas where you see, you know, the team needs to build this, or maybe go look at why this type of player, this type of position, that kind of a Santa Claus's list to take to ownership, maybe?
Oh, I have a big list for Santa Claus this season. No. I think just in general, I think it's a healthy thing to say, and I think it's also a very typical thing for a coach to say that in every line of the pitch we'll get someone new. But I think when it comes to the type of player that we're going out on the market for, that's something different maybe than what we're looking for last season. And what I mean by that is we shifted a lot. Like, I think the physicality of a player was very often something we were looking for in the previous years. I think we want to shift that more into the technicality of a player. We want center backs that are able to handle the ball. We want an outside back that's very comfortable receiving in wide areas, getting into 1v1s. That changes the view on college, that changes the view on players, and that's more of the profiles we're going out on the market for. So a lot of players that we looked at last season in college are still being looked at, but are put in a different division that we're looking at right now. So I think when it comes to positions, I think we definitely need to go out and look for an outside back. That's just definitely something we're doing. On the midfield as well, looking at, we have the experience of Claudia right now. We have technicality of Tejada. I think she's shown a lot last few weeks, months. But we need to add someone that takes on the competition with them. And then I think offensively we've been struggling a bit with the different types of play. I think I don't want to be predictable in what I do offensively. And in order not to be predictable in what you do offensively, you need different type of players. You need someone that can check in, but you need also someone that can go in behind. And I don't believe in finding, or maybe we do, and maybe there is one or two in this whole world, but I don't believe in finding someone that can get in behind, touch, come into the ball, move into, that's too big of a question. So that will be probably something that we'll have to break down into bringing in two type of strikers, wingers that are capable of doing one each, and really trying to analyze an opponent and being sure that when an opponent presses high, we might need that one that gets in behind. If we play against a Louisville that's comfortable playing in a medium block, we'll need someone that checks in and creates space in behind. So that will really depend. And if as a coach you have those weapons, then from a tactical point of view it becomes more fun.
Do we have time for
Oh
one?
yeah, we got go for it.
You have one now? You wanna-
Yeah. What do you think went right, and then what do you think went wrong this season?
Well, I will not talk about the season. I will talk about the period I was in, obviously. I think that's only fair to do so. But I just think in terms of when a coach comes in or a new coach comes in, that's when you see injuries going very high, because you adapt the style of play, you adapt the demand of the player, and I think that's something I learned myself as well. I'm not saying that I will leave right away to a new club, but whenever you go to a new club and you have to change stuff, you have to be more cautious in what you do and what you envision to do. So I think just in general, what went well is, I think, the individual development of players with a high potential in the last few months was very clear. I think that's been very, very clear. A few players of whom everyone knew that they were good, they really showed they were really good. And I think that's, to me, that sounds as a success from the staff and the people that we have been working behind the scenes, talking about, like I said, Kedel Fava, also Kale coming back. But I think looking at our two center backs in combination with how Mendy's been playing the last few weeks, I think that's something we can call a success. The combinations, the actions they were able to make, but also just the technical stuff that they were doing way better than what they were doing before. I think that's very important. What went wrong, obviously, is the injury rate. I think that's something we have to be honest about. We brought in players in August that weren't fit in September, that some of them were injured until the end of the season. So obviously that's something we have to look into. That's something we have to be stronger at. But that's what preseason is for. Preseason will be the phase where we build a good foundation. Like I said, I want to be ready for a good 80-90% in March, and not having to go out on the market in August to find another 60 or 40% to what you want to do. So I think that's just very important. But again, it's putting everything into perspective, knowing you are an expansion team, knowing that we didn't spend what other teams were spending before this season. Like, we were very particular on having a first season, looking at what went well, what went wrong. I think the club showed a lot of commitments by bringing in Mina Tanaka, by bringing in Zonoza, by bringing in Lacasse. that was the club showing like, look, we had first 6 months, we looked at what went wrong, what went well, what do we have to do now? And I think that's just a good analysis, and it's more of these kind of pieces, making sure the puzzle is right and everyone that we bring in has an added value. I think that's from a roster build. That's just what we have to do right now, and I think that went well. In the end, I think the thing that went the most positive of all is just the way that people are still running into this building on a daily basis. Big smile, ready to work. We have 4 or 5 players that are staying for postseason training. They're still training today. Kate, Anna, Ellie, Mandy, still training on a daily basis. I think Kate was called Iron Women of one of the Iron Women in this league, playing all the minutes. She's still training, and she's like literally 2 days after the last game she was in training. And I mean, that's also something that went well. Like, we were able to give joy to what they do on a daily basis, because if you don't have joy in what you do, you don't show up 2 days after your last game to train another 20 days, because now they're going to train for 20 days without any games. And I think as a player, the game is something you look forward to. So being able just to do that, bringing that joy into what they do, is the most important part of what we did this season.
And then coming from Belgium, what has your experience been like living in Utah? What have you enjoyed? What surprised you?
I have to be honest, I've been going, like, I've been visiting a lot of hikes lately, the last few weeks, and that's something like, I think as a coach you have a demanding job. As a staff you have a demanding job, so you have to find something and somewhere where you can really release yourself and just put everything away. And I think the nature is my way of doing that. I have just a physical demand. I can ask a lot of my body myself. I go for a run or I go hiking. So obviously, when you talk about Utah, you talk about Salt Lake City. That's one of the reasons why you would move towards here, just to be able to do all of the outdoor stuff. So I think that's been one of the most positive things. Flying out was always very exciting, but flying back, knowing that you fly back to a healthy, safe place, that's still one of the reasons why I'm very happy coming back here. Very special about this place is the food scene. I think that's when you're from Belgium and I have to be honest, I've been raised with very good food for 29 years. I'm not saying the food is bad, but I still have to adapt on a daily basis, and I still have to find the right places to go. I still have to find the right things to do. But no, in general, I think I enjoy it very much here. I'm someone that likes sports. Went to a lot of Utah Jazz games, went to the Utah Ice hockey games, went to BYU, went to Utah State. So I think it's a fun place to go and to be just in general, and doing all of that, being safe, being healthy. I think that's the most important part.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have time for one?
I've been here for a little longer, and I'm still struggling to find some of the good places to eat around town. So
Well, I get recommendations on a 2-3 daily basis, and I try to write them all down and try to visit them. And I found a few good places, but I'm still looking for like the hidden gems. I still looking for it.
Last question for me. I don't know if elevator pitch translates. If you have anything in Dutch does that resonate? The idea of an elevator pitch,
Yeah,
just
like
a 30-second kind of
30.
high level.
Yeah.
What do you and Kelly have, or what would be yours? I can't speak. You can't speak for Kelly, but what would be your elevator pitch as you do talk to players around the globe to come to Utah? Why come here?
I think I can use an example of what we had last week. A player playing in a very high league, 28 years old, more than 15 years of experience. And after the call, she literally said, I've never seen something like this in terms of how we approach the individual, how we presented her plan. Like, look, if you're joining our environment, this is what you will do on a daily, weekly, monthly. This is what we'll do with you. And her words after the call was like, this is unseen. I've never had an experience like this. I never had a coach that just looked at me as, how can I make you better, more than a coach that approaches you in, how can you make our team better. I think that's an approach we would like to have as much as possible, looking at all the people we have in this building, not only players but also staff. How can we make you a better person, not necessarily a person professional. How can we help you in your professional pursuit, making sure you feel well, you feel mentally good. And we believe, like, if the relationship between performing and mental health is at its highest, then we'll have fun from a team perspective as well. So I think that would be our elevator pitch towards the outside world. Like, if you want to grow as an individual, if you want to spend time in an environment where people will care about you as an individual and make sure you fit into a good club environment, this is a good place to be.
That's cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Dan?
Thank you, Jimmy.